Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is Bets and Banter, and we are going for a road game today, guys. I am touching down in the great state of New Jersey today. We are not reporting to you from the great state of New York. That being said, we're repping for Section 9 Wrestling because you know that PJ Duke went out there and put on. Shout out to PJ Duke. Shout out to Section 9. Going out there making a world team at 18 years of age. His name's on the back of this T-shirt because he's still in high school. So shout out to that guy. Shout out to Section 9. We up. And you know that we got to carry that momentum into this week. Now, guys, we're in Baku, Azerbaijan. It's all going down tomorrow, and I'm excited to talk about it. But you know, Bets and Banter cannot be done alone. We needed a great guest. Wizz is in the building. We got a new start time this week. How you feeling, my brother?
I got sleeves on. I saw that first comment. The sleeves are on, and the stash is in full effect. We had a little bit of a shaving mistake, but I'm digging it. Excited for this card. Not going to lie. Not the most passionate about this card when it comes to like bets, but really excited for some of these fights because we have some bangers.
No doubt about it, man. We got fun action fights. We've got some Azerbaijanis looking to represent at home this weekend. We also have a really interesting light heavyweight fight. It could have easily been a title fight. Both of these guys, proximity to the championship belt. So I'm excited to figure it all out, man. And why don't we start in earnest with the first fight of the night like we always do. And, brother, it is a low-level heavyweight slop fest, as I like to say. We got Hamdi Abdul Wahab taking on Mohammed Usman. And neither one of these guys has been a standout so far in the UFC. Who gets the job done in this one, my man?
Oh, of course they start off a card in Azerbaijan with Mohammed Usman versus Hamdi. It's a very hard fight to break down because these guys are just not technical. And when guys are not technical, you don't really have too much to go off of except for just, I don't know, whatever you see on the tape that they do consistently, which is very little. And then cardio-wise, both these guys tend to fade as the fight goes on later on in the second and third round. I do trust Hamdi to at least maybe find a takedown or two in this fight against Usman. I'm not ruling out Usman getting takedowns of his own when Hamdi is gassed out towards the end of round 2 and in round 3. I think this fight can go either way, and when I think a fight can go either way, you just have to play the dog. Mohammed Usman is by no means like a bum, but I mean, is Hamdi Abdul Wahab a world champion? Is he the greatest to ever do it? No, he's not. So I'm taking Mohammed Usman here and hoping for the best. If he loses, then I think I'm just going to swear off betting him.
Yeah, I think that's fair play, my man. Like, I definitely get where you're coming from. I got to be honest, I don't have a very strong read on this fight. One thing that I've heard a lot of people say, I always like to, check narratives against data, right? And, a lot of people this week are like, yo, Hamdi's never dealt with a real heavyweight. Like, Jamahal Pogues, he's a light heavyweight guy. Then you just look and you're like, okay, but he weighs 265 pounds, which is the heavyweight limit, right, in his last available weigh-in. And then you got Mo Usman, who shows up 240 or so. So, obviously, I think that this is the kind of fight where, Hamdi has a low center of gravity. He's kind of an awkward build type of guy. He has gotten a few takedowns in the UFC, but I think the most consistent part of his game is gassing out in difficult fights. The guy has had very few experiences overall. Mo Usman on the other side, he's had more relevant UFC experience than Hamdi has official pro fights on his record. So that's a little concerning. I will say, Mo Usman's recent performances haven't been inspiring. Like Thomas Peterson, he's a good, solid enough wrestler, but his UFC game hasn't translated, right? There's been a couple things for me that make me out on the Mo Usman train. I think I had Peterson as well as the fight not to go the distance there. Usman seems like a guy who should have bonk power, but the only guy he's actually taken out is Zach Palga, who, no disrespect to the man, but he was not long for the UFC, right? The guy, I think, has lost some regional fights since as well. So he's on hard times, right? And Mo Usman for me is a guy who could beat bottom of the barrel guys. If I was to try and ascertain what is the best win of his mixed martial arts career, it is shameful to say, but I believe it's Jake Collier by a pretty substantial margin as well. So do I think Hamdi and Jake Collier are on the same tier? Kind of. Jake is a more skilled fighter, but just his physical attributes are nil. His will to win is, come and go, right? So I just don't think that there's a lot for me to get invested in here. I see a plus 175 on the fight not to go the distance with a guy in Hamdi who I think could go into cardiac arrest, in the third round. And I think Mo Usman, on the other hand, like, is just not very good. So I think he can make a big mistake, kind of keep his hands a little low. But like, both these guys are just big, oafy swingers in the heavyweight division. Like, if they don't get takedowns, that's what I expect here, right? Like a jab from Usman and then both of them to swing wild, kind of ugly hooks, and whoever connects more or a little bit cleaner probably gets the nod if it goes to the cards. So yeah, for me, I just don't feel like I have a lot to, dig my teeth into here. I'm probably going to be passing on this first fight of the night. I believe my article pick was Hamdi Abdul Wahab via split decision. So if you're looking for more credence to my guy Wizz's take on the underdog, like if I'm predicting you by split decision, I'm not laying minus 165 chalk with you, right? Like I think the guy is probably just one or two takedowns away from winning the fight. But you look back at Usman's career, the last thing I'll note on this fight before I kick it back to Wizz for any closing thoughts is this guy Usman has been taken down a couple times, but he normally just works back up to his feet pretty fast. Like he doesn't normally spend a ton of time being controlled on the bottom. So maybe if Hamdi gets 3-4 takedowns, kind of mixes things up here, shows a little bit more of a ceiling, he could do something special. But it's like, barring that, like I think Usman will probably work his way back up. I don't think Hamdi has some special control. A lot of Olympic-style wrestlers do not have the same control on the mat that folk-style, collegiate-style American wrestlers have because it's a different sport. One favors offense, one favors control. So I just think that grappling, different than wrestling, different than doing international styles of wrestling. So Hamdi, I think, probably a little bit more takedown upside, but ultimately close fight. Any closing thoughts, Wiz?
Yeah, before we move on to the next fight, we have to note the 6-inch reach advantage for Mo Usman here. If Mo Usman knows how to do anything in the striking realm, it's going to be the jab. So I do expect him to be able to pump out the jab against Hamdi, who does not have the greatest striking defense out there. So that should be able to win him at least some minutes on the feet. Sure, Hamdi could clip him, but other than that, I don't see too much danger coming from the Hamdi side in the striking realm, at least. So I'm banking on
I don't think Hamdi is much of a grappler either. Like I don't think his grappling pedigree is super high.
He just wrestles.
Yeah, pretty much. So when I think about, I'm conceptually with you, right? It's a dog or pass situation for me. I think violence is in play because they're both not very good. But ultimately, it's probably a close decision more often than not. And in a close decision, click the dog or pass on the fight. All right, man. Next up, we got Tagir Beckov taking on Azat Maxim. And I'll start off on this one, man. I'll be pretty straightforward to the point. I think that Tagir Beckov has the skills to submit this guy, right? He's 33 years of age. He's getting up there for a flyweight. But when you just look skill for skill, I think Azat Maxim's a fine fighter. He does not blow my hair back. I think he's okay. He's got a good win-loss record, but he's going to, close decision with Tyson Nam in his first fight. I believe he got outlanded by almost double the amount of significant strikes there, relied on some takedowns. Is he going to out-wrestle Tagir Beckov? I would be impressed by that kind of performance. Not to say it's impossible, right? Tim Elliott cheated his ass off and out-wrestled him for some positions at some point, but it's like, this guy's hard to out-wrestle. You go back and look at the Alan Nascimento fight. You see that he was able to do a great job staying on top, prioritizing top position, winning scrambles and exchanges against a very high-level practitioner. And I don't, think that Tagir is like the greatest fighter I've ever seen, but I think he is a level above Azat Maxim. He's more proven at this level. He's finished guys in the UFC. And when you look at that Charles Johnson, rocking by Azat Maxim, that for me is like his path to victory, right? He could go out there, maybe touch Tagir on the chin. Tagir's not used to being in those kind of compromised situations, but ultimately, like if you just said whose skills are better, who do you think wins this fight more often than not? The price is gross, but I think Tagir is going to submit this guy at a pretty decent clip. What do you think, Wiz?
I think in this fight, we look at it the same way. I just don't believe in the wrestling of Azat Maxim here, and what we know Tagir Beckov is going to do is going to go out there and look to wrestle his ass off. He regularly puts on the singlet. His striking is just a means to get his wrestling going. And when he starts to get the wrestling going, one thing I like about Tagir is he's one of the few Dagestanis that likes to use the hooks with the legs. And for me, that's a big control piece there. So when he gets guys' backs, when he gets into a favorable position against the cage, he's able to land takedowns from those hooks. And then if he's on the back, he just works that rear naked choke left and right. I think he's going to be able to land that same rear naked choke against Azat Maxim, probably in the second round is my prediction.
Yeah, I think the front choke is live. Charles Johnson had several attempts at that, but I also agree with you. The back take is live. You've seen a guy in Nate Maness, very difficult to get out of there. I think Umar spent 15 minutes on his back, couldn't get him out of there, and Tagir was able to put him away. Impressive win in that performance. Cody Durden, a guy that's been submitted a handful of times in his career, but again, it was the technique. It was his ability to lock that in, do it after hurting him as well on the feet. So we've just seen Tagir as a well-rounded game, and barring some regression at 33 years of age, I think he's the better fighter, way more proven fighter. So I think he gets the job done here.
And we have the luxury of being confident in him making weight now that we know that he made weight.
Yeah, exactly. We get to skip that piece of the pie, which is always a question mark with a guy like Tagir, but hats off to him, man. Like a professional this time, showed up, made the weight. So both guys ready, prepared, and it should be a fun fight while it lasts. Maxim does pack a punch on the feet, but I believe that, Tagir a level above here. All right, man. Next up, we got Irina Alekseeva taking on Claudia Sigula. Why don't you start us off on this one, Wiz? What do you think, my man?
Yeah, we talked about this one a little bit before we hopped onto the podcast, and we both like I'm not going to spoil it, but I think that Irina is I would say she's a deserved favorite in this fight. Claudia Sigula didn't really impress me with her tape. I still didn't grasp what she's good at in the mixed martial arts realm. One thing we can count on with Irina Alekseeva is that she's going to go out there and she's going to be aggressive from bell to bell for as long as it lasts. And when you have a fighter that is willing to go out on their shield like that, you got to always look towards unders. I know it's WMMA, but the under 2.5 at like -112, -113, pretty much -110s on average around the market. You kind of have to click it there. So for me, it's under or nothing. I'm not confident in a single side, but I do think that Alekseeva is more likely to finish the fight on the ground, whether it's via armbar. Give me that Russian Ronda armbar special. I think that this fight lands on the ground 9 times out of 10 here.
Yeah, for me, man, I think there's a chance that Sigula could have made improvements, right? She went to American Top Team. She does look like she's in slightly better physical condition for this fight. But at the end of the day, her body of work is not very positive, right? There's common opponents where she's fared worse. There's the fact that she fought a girl, got a heel hook win, then rematched her and got like straight arm lock or something. Just absolutely dire level of grappling shown in those contests, both of them, as a matter of fact. And that woman, I think, is like 4-3 as a professional fighter or something, like not a very high level fighter. Irina Alekseeva doesn't have a lot of experience, only 7 pro fights at 34 years of age. That for me is a bit alarming coming into this fight, but what does she have? She's massive in terms of size compared to this woman. I think she's a little bit more tough and a little bit more aggressive. We kind of saw how they both fared when they were in tough positions with Mullins. And then I see a girl like Alekseeva as just being a more dangerous submission grappler based on the knowns, right? Could Sigula have made, huge improvements? Yeah, sure. But I know that Stefan Yeager competed at a high level in grappling. I know that she has submission wins in the UFC. So for me, Irina Alekseeva is a much more proven grappler at this point, bigger fighter. If you're the bigger woman with more proven grappling, you should go get the job done on the floor, whether it's via, stoppage with strikes like we saw from Mullins, who is a better grappler. That's why she was able to set that up. Or whether we see her go out there and get a submission. So for me, I just feel like unders is probably a decent click here. I don't think Alekseeva is a world beater. Maybe she slips on a banana peel, but I think she should get the finish more often than not. Shout out to my guy Moise. As a young judoka, she was a 3-time silver medalist at the Russian Judo Championships, and we know that they take their judo seriously over in Europe. So shout out to that. Shout out to Dave Quinn, who's shouting Mia. I appreciate you, my brother. Thanks for the show and the knowledge. Appreciate you guys. Sharpest chat in the game. And my guy Kane, who said he hasn't been able to make the stream for a long time. He's back here. Appreciate you big time, brother. Thank you for being here. So that's all we got on this one, guys. I think we both lean towards violence and we both lean towards Alekseeva, but you're not going to get caught, with your pants down, laying -275 on a pretty low level fight. All right. Next up, we got Daria Zeleniakova taking on Melissa Mullins. And I'll lead us off here, man. This is a rematch of a fight that already happened in Aries FC. I want to say that was 2022. And what I saw, in that contest is that Daria was getting to her ass on the feet, lighting her up. And then, with 2 minutes left in the first round, Mullins goes for a takedown into dominant position, past the guard, slice through it like butter, into the mount, gets the back, and that's where the fight ends. If you ask me, it was an early stoppage. It's not uncommon to see that in WMMA. Somebody's getting lit up with strikes. They step in, a little bit sooner than they probably would if it was two gentlemen scrapping. But that being said, the writing was on the wall, right? Like the path to victory was, it was like a light bulb went off in her head. Like if I shoot a takedown, I think I could win this fight. And goes for one takedown, easy body locking. We just know that Daria looks absolutely hopeless on the ground. She does not look like she's very skilled. She does not look like she knows what to do to get out. So toughness, sure, she got some of that, but ultimately, like if you're making those huge positional mistakes, let's imagine Mullins has 4 minutes to work on top. She's going to submit her. I'm like quite confident that she has the skills to do that. So let's see if that brown belt can actually be put to use for once. Melissa Mullins, a brown belt level world champion, like should have the skills to go out there and put her away on the ground. But then on the converse side, let's just talk about the fact that Melissa Mullins got lit up in that first round. So I know that she's an easy mark to take damage. How about that Nora Cornole fight where she should have a massive advantage? I think it's like brown belt versus blue belt, and frankly, it was just a horrible look. Like she was getting swept. She was getting put in bad positions, like just made a lot of mistakes there. And I think it's because she was scared of getting back on the feet. And I think she had already been hurt. So I don't like her reactions to getting hit. I think we saw that against Daria the first time as well. So for me, it just feels like both women have a path to violence. Like I look at Daria, KO path is there. I look at Melissa, any path on the ground is pretty clearly evident. So for me, just banking on somebody go out there and finish the job here one way or the other. Both women have been finished in all of their career losses. So for me, that's enough to take the plunge. Wiz, what do you think about this one, my man? Another low-level WMMA scrap, and this one's a rematch.
Yeah, first and foremost, shout out to the chat. We appreciate you all for just being interactive on such an, first and foremost, a different different time of day that we do this show, and also just randomly during the weekday while some of you guys are already working too. So thanks for being interactive. Now, when it comes to this fight, I feel like Eileen Perez kind of laid the blueprint on how to beat Daria Zelezniakova, and it's just to consistently go for takedowns over and over, and you'll be able to rack up the talk time, and Daria is going to start getting gassed out as she tries to keep working back up from these takedowns. As long as you're able to not gas out yourself from shooting that many, you should be fine. Or if you're able to control her on the ground, even better, because Eileen doesn't really have the greatest jiu-jitsu. So she's not efficient for hooks. She's just letting girls get back up and taking them back down. Similar to a Merab-esque approach. It's kind of disgusting that I just said Merab and Eileen Perez in the same sentence, but you know what I mean. And Melissa Mullins here, I think she's going to be able to find takedowns here. And if she's able to establish control, I don't see a world where she can't find a submission. And if this fight does stay on the feet, Daria is a pretty good striker. I like her in terms of WMA striking. And you mentioned it. We saw Mullins get beat up in that first round. And I'm not putting it past her here either. I think Daria could get her out as the fight wears on. So the under 2.5, we see eye to eye. I know we spoke about this one before the pod as well. And it seems like a lot of these totals may be mispriced. So we have to take advantage. I do obviously predict that Mullins is going to find a sub more than Daria is going to find the knockout, but you kind of get the equity in both here. So give me Mullins by sub, the under. Pretty confident in this one.
Yeah, we see that one the exact same way, my brother. So I'm glad we do. Next up, we got Ismail Nardiev taking on Jun-Young Park. And this fight feels a little bit trickier than I wanted it to. Like, I initially thought Ismail Nardiev was a live underdog here. He's much younger. He's a slightly bigger fighter, coming back with already having some UFC experience under his belt, more professional experience as the younger fighter. Like, these are all things that, like, check off boxes for me when I'm looking to bet somebody as an underdog. But to tell you the truth, man, Jun-Young Park is just a really proven guy on the other side. All his losses are to quality individuals. No losses where you're like, man, how did this happen? And then, his wins, that's where I kind of run into, like, am I really that confident on the other side either? Because, like, Jun-Young Park has beat a lot of the worst fighters in the history of the middleweight division. He's absolutely run through those guys. John Phillips. Like, you can go through a list of, like, guys. Dennis Touloulian, right? Shows up. He's 1-5 in the UFC, right? Shows up to take the whooping, get finished in the first 2 rounds. That's kind of the deal that he signed, right? And it's like, when you look at Jun-Young Park, he'll take out any of those guys, no problem. Nardiev, for me, you look at his UFC body of work, nothing to sneeze at, right? You go to a decision with Sean Brady, what do I say to you, right? But then on the other side, you look at, he's getting finished by Kutsi regionally. He's getting beat up by Al-Sawali regionally and a couple other guys as well. And you're just like, how good is this guy at fighting? The Bruno Silva fight, what looked good about it? He was just consistent in all areas. Like, he outstruck him on the feet, took him down, out-hustled him on the ground, out-wrestled him, had the cardio to do it for 15 minutes. I really can't hang up on any part of that performance is, man, you did a horrible job. But was it super dynamic? Did it show me like, hey, this guy's a world beater now? Not really. And Junyoung Park on the other side pushes a much higher pace. He's a lot more consistent to have that will to win than a guy like Bruno Silva. He doesn't need to rely on the KO like Bruno Silva. He can mix it up on the ground, right? He has some skills on the feet as well. He can box with you. So I just think that Junyoung Park probably should be like a -125, -150 favorite in this fight. Because I think back to fights like the Eric Anders fight where I bet him, and that fight almost went sideways for me. And like, I felt so lucky to cash. I had like 6 units on Junyoung Park. And dude, it was like nip tuck, right? It was like 1 inch over the line. And like, I think Junyoung Park, better, more proven guy, probably better cardio, less likely to quit if the going gets tough. But like, I've also seen him just get stiff, up with a punch and have bad reactions, right? When he was fighting Gregory Rodriguez, I bet RoboCop at like a pick'em there, -110, and it looked like a pick'em. So Junyoung Park, not a bad fighter, but you just kind of see like, there are times when the lack of supreme athleticism gets shown, right? Eric Anders, just a big muscly football player, is picking him up, taking him down, So I do think like, if you're an athlete, you can go out there and compete with him. I just don't think Nardiev is as impressive an athlete as I want to fade him with. So for me, ultimately, it's a pass fight as of where I'm looking at it now. I think the right guy's favored. I think he might be a slight bit overvalued this week, but ultimately, I do think it's a close fight. And I think Junyoung Park in a close fight should have more grit to go out there and get the win. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the line where it's at right now might be a tad bit wide. Because look, what we get with Nardiev is someone who is really going to be a motherfucker when he's fresh. Like round 1 and round 2, he's just a very dynamic and explosive striker, and also has some pretty good grappling. For me, I think the way for Park to really manage this fight is in round 1 to really wear on Nardiev and grind him against the cage and try to find takedowns if he can. Just to try and slow Nardiev down and get that gas tank to wear out. And then, how Park fights. He's going to go after you over and over again until you basically either give up or he wins the decision. So he's not going to stop. He has cardio for days, and he can definitely be in the fight for all 3 rounds. The issue is, can he survive the early onslaught from the Nardiev side? I personally think it's one of the better live bets of the card here, betting on Park after round 1. If you start to see him, really hold his own in the striking and not be affected by the power. But if Nardiev keeps building, then you just keep your hands clean and you thank yourself for not playing on Park early at -190. Because at the end of the day, -190 on a 34-year-old middleweight who's been in the UFC for quite some time, has a lot of miles on the tank. You kind of have to keep all of that stuff into perspective. And Nardiev is someone who's young, upcoming, hungry, and I think he could hurt Park early on. So I think it's Nardiev pre into Park live, but that's the only way I would play it personally. Ultimately, I'm going to favor Junyoung Park here to win by decision, but could be a split decision.
Yeah, man, we again see this one quite similar because I'm looking back at my article prediction and I said Ismail Nardiev round 1 or split decision, Park round 2, 3 or split decision. Like it just feels like Nardiev could blitz him early. He kind of starts a little bit hotter than Junyoung Park in my opinion. But on the other side, Junyoung Park, a known round 2, 3 merchant, he will come back on your ass. He will start to pick up the pace. And additionally, like he hustles at decisions. A couple of close splits, he's found a way to get them to go his way with optics, being smart. So fun fight. Shout out to VB MMA Picks in the chat, says, what's up, boys? What's up, my brother? Going to be doing some content with my guy VB next week. So y'all can look forward to that. I think we're going to be over on his channel. Shout out to VB in the chat. Next up, my brother. I think this is the last one that I'll lead off on for a little while. We'll get my brother Wizz starting us off on some fights, but I'm going to lead off on this one because I'm kind of on a bold stance on this one. I think there might be value on Ko this weekend coming into the fight, and I'll walk you through why. Ko hasn't fought that many good guys, so like, could he get tested and just found out in this one? I think that's possible, but we're talking about big indications, right? Big underdog odds for him in this fight. And so when I talk about unknowns typically push the line a little bit closer to 50-50. What are the unknowns here? Well, how does Oban Elliott deal with a southpaw? I don't really know, right? I'm looking through his record. I'm not seeing it, right? Certainly not at the UFC level. He's not dealing with that, right? Then I look at the fact, okay, how did Oban Elliott beat a guy like Val Woodburn, maybe the biggest power puncher that he fought so far in the UFC? And by the way, that's not saying that much, right? I think Val Woodburn went 2 in barbecue and is no longer with the promotion. So you look at how Oban Elliott fared in that fight. He got hurt badly early, relied on the takedowns, relied on the wrestling. The fact that he was able to get the fight to the ground when he needed to grab a hold of the guy. You look at Ko in his last fight, you know, Kabakanti tried to mix in a couple of takedowns. It didn't go his way, right? We saw that, you know, Kabakanti was not only not getting the takedowns very frequently, but when he did try to get them, he was getting reversed. He was getting taken down himself. He was giving up, you know, big shots when he was trying to enter. And Ko just seemed to me like a guy that was ready, you know, to fight everywhere, right? Like he was fighting on the feet, he was fighting in the clinch, he was fighting on the ground. Cool in the game, right? Guys throwing up submissions, he's dealing with them, moving out of the way, standing back up, looking for ground and pound, looking to pass. By the way, in the later rounds, he did pass, right? He started to get to good positions. He started to pass the guard. He started to look for a finish. So for me, I feel like, what do I know about Ko? He's got some knockout power on the feet. He's not a complete zero on the ground. He knows what he's doing on the ground, going with a Brazilian guy who hasn't lost a fight before or since. And I'm like, where is this guy's skill level at? I think he could take a decent punch. Like, I know he's gotten knocked out recently, right? He got knocked out by Palatnikov in his second fight. Palatnikov made it to the UFC. He's not a complete scrub, right? Then you look at, okay, he lost to one other guy. It was in like his 5th fight. So I just see Ko as a guy that has some skills, you know, some power, some intangibles, and he's not really known by the public. And Oban Elliott is like the public darling. You know, everybody loves this guy. He's got the Chael Sonnen bit. Nothing wrong with that. Chael Sonnen made a whole nice career, and he lost 1,000,000 times, right? He kept his name interesting on the microphone. I could see Oban Elliott doing the same thing. Is he a bad fighter? No, by no means. But has he proven to me that he is aces can't be touched in the UFC? He got hurt by Kike Brito. He got hurt by Val Woodburn. What is his great, like, standout win so far in the UFC? Knocked out Basil Hafez. Decent enough win, solid, right? JDM didn't do that. Hats off to him. But it was a different fight, right? A completely different fight. The way those two played out, it was like basically a striking matchup for the whole time. So, yeah, I think Basil Hafez fought a pretty stupid game plan there. Probably should have tried to wrestle a little bit harder, but life goes on, right? I think that Ko, it would not stun me if he got a takedown in this fight. It would not stun me if he got a knockdown in this fight. So at plus 3XX, like, for me, I do think there might be some value. Wiz, what do you think?
In this one, you know, it is really what it is on tape with Ko. Dude has a lot of power, pretty decent striker, and his grappling is also not that bad. I do think that he can work up from the initial couple of takedowns if Oban tries to employ a grapple-heavy game plan. I just don't see it going any other way, where I think Elliot's going to find takedowns repetitively, and I think it's going to lead to a finish. That's just how I see it. I don't think Ko is ready for the UFC level just yet. He hasn't really faced the biggest of names, and I know Elliot's been hurt multiple times in his fights before, and he's been KO'd twice. I think where the line is at right now, it's definitely a bit of a stretch, but I just don't see how Ko wins the fight, personally. But yeah, not the most passionate take about this one, to be honest with you. I didn't go over it too in depth.
Fair play, my man. I think that when I'm looking at this fight, the value I see is on the dog and the fight not to go. Because Oban Elliott showing a little bit more finishing instincts last time out, a little bit more sitting down on his strikes. Ko's been knocked out before. Elliott's been finished with strikes before. I think all of their fights have been finished with strikes. And then on the other side of things, it's like, you know, I think that Ko has power. You know, I do think he can clip this guy. It's 170-pound men throwing punches at each other's head, neck, and chest. I think Kabakanti, and this is a personal opinion based on tape, I think he started wrestling because he was scared he was going to get knocked the fuck out, honestly. Like, he was taking some clean left hands to the chin like 3-4 times in a row, and he's like, yo, let's have some takedowns. Let's not do this shit no more. And then the fight kind of got grimier from there. But I thought Ko maybe lost that first round and then took over in rounds 2 and 3, and that's a junkyard dog kind of approach. I do like that, but you know, I'll have to wait and see whether I get to this one or not, because got some inside information flowing in as well that, you know, maybe things don't always go its way in sparring. So we'll find out, man. But either way, we got Mohamed Nimov taking on Bognrad, and this is the kind of fight where, you know, Mohamed Nimov, I bet him when he was a plus 2XX dog, but now he's a minus 270 favorite. Wiz, is there value?
Yeah, I mean, I personally just never think it's a good idea backing Mohamed Nimov at chalk, let alone heavy chalk. Well, I understand the vices that people see against Bognrad, where chin is always up in the air. Dude is really not great at anything, but good everywhere. Has okay power. Is there for 3 rounds consistently, and I think ever since he moved down to 145, he's faring a little bit better. I think the guys at 155 were just a little bit too big for him, a little bit too powerful, and he was getting caught and getting hurt quite often at 155. So I think the move to 145 is definitely helping him, and you can tell from his physique, dude is just absolutely shredded, and he's on some good vitamins. Let's just put it that way. And Mohammed Nimov is someone that has been flash knocked down multiple times, and I'm not putting it past him here too. So personally, I'm paying the Bognrad KO line, and I'm taking Bognrad on the money line. Nothing more than I'm fading Nimov until it works. I don't want to put too much stock into this guy Bognrad because obviously he can go out there and lay a nothing burger. We've seen it before, and he can go out there and get knocked out because Nimov, if he has something, it's power and relentlessness. But Nimov in the 3rd round slows down, is chinny, has been dropped, and I think Bogdan hits really hard. So for all those reasons, I'm favoring the grad side, and I will have some money there.
Yeah, this is another one where I agree with you. I think the dog is live. Nimov needed to grab the gloves, knee the balls, like everything in the book to beat Nathaniel Wood. And, nothing wrong with that, right? He got takedowns too. He landed big knockdowns on the feet. But I think that the guy is like a known cheater, right? I think he's a known gasser. And I think that when you combine those two things, like, could he lose a point? I don't expect it in Azerbaijan, but crazier things have happened. Could this guy go out there and gas out, like go out there selling out, looking for a finish and gas late? Yeah, for sure. It's happened to him against Felipe Lima, but it's also happened to him in the past. I mean, the loss to Colin Anglin is just like shockingly bad, right? Like he's gotten better since then. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But on the other side, I see Bognrad as pretty solid. Like, is he going to blow your hair back with any individual skill? No, but he's a gamer. He fights hard. He goes out there and looks for takedowns. He looks for explosive offense on the feet. He's not afraid to mix it up with guys on the ground. He's got a decent submission game. So I feel like Bognrad offers danger. I feel like he really wants to win. He wants to go out there and compete. He will die trying. You know what I mean? Like, if he doesn't win, he will die trying. He will go out there and fight hard for your money. And 29 years of age, these guys stand a very similar size. And Bognrad, a little bit more professional experience. Like, I don't know what not to like about him. On the Nimov side, he does have a little bit better wins, right? A little bit better quality of experience, but you also look in like the wins that he has in the UFC. Like one guy stepped in the cage and like hurt his own foot. Like, what do I read into that? He's down, 7 minutes against Jamie Malarkey, lands a big punch, knocks him out. Awesome. Jamie Malarkey doesn't have a very good chin. So I think he can knock out Bognrad, but I think that Bognrad does a lot of things, right? He's going to try very hard to win this fight. And for me, at, big plus 2XX numbers, that's almost enough to get involved. So yeah, I think that for me, Bognrad is the pick to click or pass in this one. All right, man. Next up, we got Nazim Satakov taking on Nicholas Moda. And I wanted to just note, because I watched the weigh-ins like right before we got on the air, I did think Nicholas Moda showed up probably in career best shape for this one. Like the guy looks like he did everything he could to get ready for this fight and, show up in shape. Slightly longer reach, similar age for these two guys. I think that Satakov has way more momentum on his side coming into this fight, but Moda on the other side, he's not unfamiliar with this role as an underdog. What do you think, Wiz?
Yeah, a lot of people's favorite dog shot on the card, just pre-tape, was Moda, for obvious reasons that he's on back-to-back wins here, back-to-back really good outings, kind of showing improvements almost in his career at 32 years old here. I just think that it was not against the best of competition. I understand Maheshate has always been someone who will be going out there and he will look to take your head off. But after a round to a round and a half, he just has no cardio left. And I just think that Tom Nolan outing was a little off. He just didn't look like himself when he was fighting Moda. But I'm not going to take anything away from Moda there. He went out there and he was landing bombs every single time that Nolan got in close. So you got to give it to him, respect to Moda, and I think he's improving. Now, on the other hand, Nazim Satakov is just a fighter I've been very high on ever since he's gotten into the UFC, and his tape shows it. He's excellent everywhere. Dude can wrestle, has some slick grappling, very powerful on the feet. The one comment I have to make about his striking is that he does leave his head pretty. His head movement isn't really all there. Leaves his head on the center line quite a bit, and that plays into Moda's advantage here with the counter striking that he likes to employ. Now, is he going to be able to land consistently on Satakov? That's another question that we will have to just wait and see tomorrow. But I personally think that Satakov is going to be able to get a knockout here in the first round. Moda's been knocked out multiple times in the first round, and I think he may be a little bit. He could come out here too confident, which he's done before in his career. The loss to Manuel Torres, he just went out there and, I mean, both guys, granted, are crazy when they get into the octagon, especially Manuel Torres. They just went out there and swung dicks until someone fell down. And that night it was Manuel Torres. Another night it could be Nicholas Mota. Who knows? But I think he's going to come in with the same approach after a couple of wins, and then I think Sadakov's going to chin him personally. So that's how I see the fight playing out.
Fair play, my man. I think that, Rob Kyle in the chat makes a really good point, which is Nazim probably could have a really clear path to victory wrestling Moda. Like we saw Trey Ogden kind of dominate from the top position against him. I think Nazim has the physicality to probably do something similar if he decides to. But if they mix it up on the feet, I think the money line price is going to look wrong. Just because like Nazim takes a lot of chances. He's willing to get into a firefight. He's willing to swing with people. And I think his durability is better than Moda, which is why I think he's a deserved favorite. But I don't think it's like lights out. Like we've seen him hurt several fights. He's just a dog that keeps getting back up and keeps toughing it out and finds a way to keep pushing. But 31 years of age, not a spring chicken, right? And you just look, obviously he's not old either. But my point being is like these guys have been rattled about the brain a million times and they're getting hit in sparring. They're getting hit in training all the time. It just wouldn't surprise me if either one of these guys got buzzed in this fight. They both hit very hard. So I think Nazim, cleaner fighter at home. I think if it's a close decision, probably going to lean his way, based on the flag and everything else. But ultimately, I just don't feel comfortable with these prices where they're at. Also, Huey says inside information. I'm playing, brother. I just, it's grapevine material. It's not stuff that, I would trust or put a ton into, but, grapevine. Nazim's path we already read that one. Nazim sub is sneaky, maybe KO. I think I agree with you, Nasty Bertrand. My gut feeling on this fight was like Sadakov sub was the way to get off the big chalk and look for an angle on him. We saw him out wrestle Terrence McKinney, who I would say is probably a better pure grappler than Moda, based on the knowns. But also Moda is not really a guy that gets tested in the grappling all that much. Guys are normally content to go out there, swang with him. Ogden got absolutely robbed in that sub, but like other than that, like most guys just go out there and bang it out on the feet with him, win, lose, or draw. And I think that if Nazim does that, it's a lot closer of a fight. If he goes out there and says, hey, let's bank an easy one, I think it's takedowns from the outside, get on top of this guy and put him in a rear naked choke, be done with it. So they say Moda is the hardest worker in the gym and he's in a great gym. Plus 360 is crazy in my opinion. Yeah, man, like I definitely see where you're coming from, VB. I think this is another live dog situation. Obviously you disagreed with me on Co, but I see it here with Moda as well. And I really like Satakov, right? But just when I think about where he was at in his career, like a year or two ago, I had heard rumors that he wasn't the very best jiu-jitsu guy. Guys were getting the best of him in rolls and stuff. So he's made big leaps and improvements there. But like the guy still was like not considered the top prospect, the next guy to watch out for. And then he kind of was, right? He started winning a bunch of fights, got some momentum. But there's definitely some hype on Nazim's side of things. And based on where it's at, you're going to pay a little bit of a tax. That Azerbaijani tax on Nazim Satakov this weekend. Oh, speaking of an Azerbaijani tax, this time we got an underdog from Azerbaijan. His name is Tofik Musayv. He's making his UFC debut, and it is not against an easy fight, man. Like Miktabek Orabay, I don't know anybody who wants to fight this guy, man. Just because he typically brings a shovel, he's willing to go to work for the full 15 minutes. The toughness he showed in that fight against Rebecca, next level. Both those guys showed next level toughness there, gritted it out through blood, guts, war. Those guys are tough. But how do you come back from a fight like that? I have no idea. 27 years of age, you'd think, hey, maybe this guy's still young enough, early enough in his career, he could bounce back from that. But a lot of damage to take coming into a fight with a dangerous striker. Musayv against Sydney Outlaw just needed one. Heard him tag them up on the chin. I got to watch a little more tape on Musayv. I want to see what it looks like when he's wrestled and grappled. For me, when I was looking at the oral buy side, like I'm always looking at the sub price for this guy because I think his process is just so sound. Take somebody down, punch him in the face till they want to give up, and then wrap their neck in a rear naked choke. That'll win a lot of MMA fights, especially when you're the stronger guy and the better wrestler. So I have to do a little bit more tape here in earnest. But I think oral buy sub or Musayv KO seem like the two most viable options for me. What do you think, Wiz?
Yeah, so I just wanted to note this fight has been moved from 155 to a catch weight at 165. This is before the weigh-ins too, so nobody quote unquote missed weight. Everybody made weight. It's just this fight got moved to 165 catch weight, and it was on the oral buy side, just for everyone's knowledge. Yeah, I was pretty passionate about the Musayv side before the change to catch weight here. Multiple reasons. I think that oral buy is someone who has very low striking defense, and we've seen him get caught multiple times now in his UFC career. And Rebecca last time out really put a beating on him. And I'm not comparing Musayv to Rebecca at all, but Musayv is someone who has a lot of power. We've seen him put out a lot of these guys in the regional scene in Bellator with just one punch. And his takedown defense is pretty solid. Now, at 165, I just don't have enough data on the Musayv side. And quite frankly, on the oral buy side too, I don't know who that extra weight's going to favor. Obviously, the guy that hasn't cut as much was Musayv. Was oral buy. I think Musayv weighed in at 163, if I'm not mistaken. I can go ahead and double check that. But yeah, 163 to 165 is what I'm seeing. So he had to cut an extra 2 pounds. It shouldn't be the biggest deal because it originally was scheduled for 155. But regardless, I think Musayv can go out there and I think he can chin oral buy. But what does the extra 10 pounds do on both sides is the big question mark. So it's left me with a big question mark in my brain about how this fight goes. So I'm just going to say pass. Otherwise, I was going to say, yeah, Musayv for the win. I still have my 1 unit bet on Musayv currently. Not quite sure if I'm going to be hedging out, though. I do think that it tends to favor oral buy more. I think he's the more physical guy out there in the cage. He's going to be looking for takedowns, and the extra 10 pounds will definitely favor him. To what degree, though, we will see tomorrow.
Yeah, man. I thought that, oral buy against Uros Medic was such an obvious click because I was like, bro, if Jalen Turner's doing that to you, like this guy oral buy, he is just going to run through you. You know what I mean? And that's where I just don't know the level Musayv is at, right? He's outside the UFC, so it's really hard to get a good gauge on the wrestling and grappling. Sometimes he has one submission loss. It was to a talented Brazilian, so it's not something where I want to say like this guy, he's useless on the mat or something, but I just have to do more digging to feel good about it. To your point, though, at a 165 catch weight, that definitely benefits the grappler. Not cutting weight for striking could be okay, but like when you just don't have to cut as much weight, you feel good, you get less tired, and like your chances of going out there and horsing somebody around are a lot higher, so I think that for oral buy, it's probably good for him. The other thing I'll say, though, is like we saw Rebecca go out there and show that he's very human. Like the guy I always said had like a chin from Hades, just like you see him get hit on the regional scene, no sell, completely unfazed by it. And I was like, that's good stuff. But then we saw like his face got absolutely destroyed. And then, other referees, other commissions, other, doctors step in and stop that fight and go, bro, you have a baseball in your eye. So let's get this over with, for safety. And I just think that for oral buy, in this fight, if he's not getting after the takedowns right away from second one, there's a chance he's going to get his face, evaporated in this one again. And how do you take the same shots coming off that last fight? I don't like that prospect. So for me, nip tuck, some arguments I can make for both sides, but the UFC proven experience, I'd make oral buy a slight favorite here, maybe minus 125, minus 150 on instincts. And I'll see if my deeper tape study of Musayv changes my mind. But in any case, man, we got Curtis Blades, Rizvan Kuniev, and this is a rebooked fight. This is a fight I wasn't super bullish on the first time it was booked. How do you see this one going down? Wiz, Curtis Blades, obviously the UFC proven vet. Rizvan Kuniev, tough UFC debut in the main card, but with tough debut comes huge opportunity.
Yeah, like you said, with tough debut comes huge opportunity, and I think this is a huge opportunity for Rizvan Kuniev, who's facing one of the bigger names in the heavyweight division. But with that big name comes a questionable chin and just a big question mark in terms of where this guy is at in his career in Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades was at the top of the sport, about to fight for a title. Wins that weird fight against Tom Aspinall due to the knee injury, then goes out there and loses by knockout to Pavlovich, wins by knockout against Jailton Almeida after being grappled for the first like 3.5 minutes of the first round, and then just lands some nasty ground and pound and elbows while Almeida is shooting for a takedown and separates him from his consciousness. And then last time out, the counter jab from Aspinall puts him down, knocks him out. So like this guy's chin has proven to be questionable, but Rizvan Kuniev is not the biggest hitter. So I'm not playing into that knockout narrative too much. I do see this fight actually going to decision if it's on the Kuniev side. So I've been looking at decision lines for Kuniev all over. And then I do think that Blades can actually get Kuniev out of there. Whether it's from the wrestling and ground and pound, we all know Curtis Razor Blades is his nickname. So he's going to go out there and land some nice ground and pound elbows from top positions if he's able to land takedowns. Skill for skill, I do think that Curtis Blades is the better fighter, but I'm never going to lay this kind of chalk with someone that has this bad of a chin. So for me, it's dog or pass, likely pass, but I think I'm going to get to a decision line bet on Kuniev.
Okay. Interesting, my man. I was liking Kuniev the last time that this was booked a little bit. I figured to myself, like, if Blades is not able to out-wrestle him, which he doesn't even try and push in most of his fights, I thought to myself, you know what, Kuniev could maybe clinch up with him, throw some knees to the body, make it an ugly slop fest, and win it like that, and I still think there's some merit to that. But one guy that I talked to in the DMs and stuff about fights, he had mentioned, like, the hands of Rizvan are just not there with a guy like Curtis. And I kind of agree with that. Like, I do think watching back Rizvan's tape, like, a lot of times he's like pawing at hands. He wants to get close to a guy. And when he's in the clinch, he feels comfortable, even whether he's getting the takedowns or not, right? Like, I feel like that's the kind of fight he's happy to operate in. Pick apart somebody slowly in the clinch, almost like a way less intense and fun version of Andreas Gustafsson, right? Like, just grab a hold of a guy at an over-under, those kind of comfortable positions. Look for the takedown when you can get it, but don't force it when you don't need it. That, for me, feels like his path to winning this fight. Blades doesn't have the best chin we've ever seen. He's normally lost to elite power punchers, but he's 34. He's been knocked out plenty of times. He's had some damage in his career. So, yeah, I think it's possibly gets knocked out, by any heavyweight opponent, really. You even look back, Jairzinho, Biggie Boy Rosenstrike, hurt him, busted up his eye, had him looking like Mick the Beck oral by, and he made it out of that one, right? He had to wrestle his way, grind his way to a decision. So for me, do I feel super confident that Blades is going to get takedowns here? No, which is why I don't believe in this price. But I do think that he has a path to winning. If he's able to get takedowns, he'll probably look like a big favorite. If he's not able to get takedowns, I have a feeling that Curtis is probably going to, slightly outbox him in those exchanges. But I think either guy could go down if they box, purely just because I think that Rizvan could maybe interrupt him with knees, elbows, kind of shorter shots. And I just don't like the way Curtis reacts to getting hit sometimes. I feel like he kind of stiffens up and gets pretty rigid in his movement. So not a fight that I feel, interested in getting involved in. I've said a million times on this show, I don't like betting on rebooked fights, but for me, it's probably a dogger pass and probably just a pass here because I look at Blades as a guy, I've had a really hard time getting him right. When I thought he had a chance against Aspinall, he looked like shit. When I thought that, he was going to smoke Derek Lewis back in the day, I think a lot of people did. He was like minus 400 or something. He gets, Marge Simpson, bus driver uppercut to the dome in the first round. So, at the end of the day, I don't feel compelled to have money on this contest. If anything, I think that the under was like minus 112 or minus 120 or something. And I didn't think that was horrible because Blades kind of suspect chin at times and Kuniev really unproven at this level. Like Blades might just knock his block off. So I did think that was interesting, but ultimately I ended up passing on that. All right, man. Next up, we got Rafael Fiziev, Ignacio Bahamondes. Assuming that this fight is going forward, I had guys in the Patreon ask, hey, is this fight canceled? I was like, I have no idea where you guys are getting that from. I'm not seeing it, but I'm always open to correction, right? So if somebody has an official source, UFC.com, somebody going to say this fight's canceled, have at it. But otherwise, Wizz, the floor is yours, my brother. What do you think about this co-main event? Action-packed lightweights.
Oof, this is right up my alley with the strikers here. We have Bahamondes, who's primarily going to be a rangy kickboxer. Really likes to keep fighters at the end of his range and uses long range weapons with the jab and then with the power too. And last time out, he showed an evolution with getting the triangle. Now, was it more Jalen Turner just giving out and not, being all there, or is it Bahamundes' skill? I like to think it's both. I have seen Bahamundes at the UFC PI work with a bunch of different grapplers. I've seen him work with Bilal, with Aljo, time and time again. So this guy is actively working on his grappling, which is a good thing to see from a fighter who's as young as he is, hasn't even entered the prime of his career yet, just trying to round out his skill set. Now, on the other hand, we have Fiziev, who not off a long layoff, but last time out against Gaethje, he was off that long layoff due to the leg injury that he suffered against Gamrot in the first round. 3 losses in a row, 2 against the same opponent. One of them I'm not going to fault him for too much, and the other one should have been a win. The first Gaethje fight, I still till this day rewatched it last time out when he fought Gaethje and thought he won. Rewatched it this time out and thought he won. So to me, that's a win in his book. And then obviously the unfortunate situation in the Gamrot fight, he was getting pieced up in that first round, I will be honest, until that leg injury happened, and shows a KO loss on the record. So we'll give him that. Last time, he just looked a little bit unlike himself, was not as fast, wasn't as snappy in the striking, and with his movements, and the pivot feet is not as smooth as we're used to seeing Fiziev. Now, it could be because he was it was a 2-week notice or 3-week notice, short notice fight, but I'm not going to give him that excuse. In this fight specifically, I think we kind of seen Klein lay the blueprint on how to beat Bahamundes. You kind of have to get in on him and work him to the body, work him to the head, and really change levels to be able to effectively strike, as long as you're not allowing him to cruise along the edge of the cage at range or really lead the battle and have him pressure you against the cage. If you're pressuring him and you're not allowing him to maintain his distance, you will beat Ignacio Bahamundes. That's just the blueprint for most long-range strikers, and John Makdessi proved it, and Klein proved it. So I do think that Fiziev can get in there and really work the body and then find a way to change levels and move up, hit the head. If he's not able to do that, I just think that Bahamundes is going to be a little bit too rangy for Fiziev. Very hard fight to break down. That's why I personally am going to stay outside and stay on the fence here and watch it, enjoy it as a fan. Prediction-wise, I do think that Fiziev is going to be able to hurt Bahamundes inside 2 rounds here and get him out of there and get back into the win column. I would love to see that happen. But yeah, for me, it's Fiziev.
Yeah, I think that I gotta stick with my gut pick, which was Bahamundes in this one, but extremely low confidence, right? The reason I say that, one thing I always try and account for is path to victory, right? And I think that Bahamundes can win this fight by knockout, though I don't think he's maybe as likely to as Fiziev. I think Fiziev's a little bit cleaner on the feet, but Bahamundes is long, he hits hard, dynamic kicks, can punt you in the face, can kick you in the body, can touch your legs, can do it for all 3 rounds. So there's a lot he brings to the table in that regard. One thing I was looking at is the under in this fight. When I look at these 2 guys, like Fiziev has been knocked out twice, and he had the one like TKO injury loss. He got like flatline put out by what's his name back in the day. Oh goodness, I'm drawing a blank on the gentleman's name. Russian cat. I think he hit him with that spin kick and dropped him bad. Oh goodness, now I have to look at it, guys. Bear with me 1 second. I don't want to give you guys misinformation. I need my facts to be correct. So Rafael Fiziev got absolutely diced by Magomed Mustafayev, spinning back kick to punches. That was all the way back in 2019. But the guy's lost twice since then, right? And he got hurt by Justin Gaethje, and he got hurt by Justin Gaethje. So when the guy is not winning his fights, he tends to be getting hurt, So I think that's important to note. On the other side of things, Bahamundes, like, John Makdessi left him a bloody mess. Guys have touched him up. Jalen Turner was landing some good, clean shots in that fight, and such that Bahamundes was like, yo, let me pull guard, regroup on the mat for a second, So the thing is, like, Fiziev in that fight with Gaethje, he's like trying to mix in a takedown here or there, trying to be sneaky. I look at Jalen Turner as a more proven, accomplished, dangerous grappler than Rafael Fiziev, period, point blank. Just like based on what they've both shown in the octagon. And I look at that and I say, like, Fiziev should have good sub defense, but like Bahamundes, long, awkward. There's not a lot of guys that are big, 6'3" giants like this. He's got huge reach and length. And on the ground, if you're a really good top player, those length things, you can normally get past those, right? But if you have even a little bit of fat on your game, like you could definitely make a mistake that a long guy will make you pay for. And I think that could happen with Fiziev here. I also think like Bahamundes opportunistic, right? If he rocks Fiziev, he's not just engaged. He's going to call him back up to the feet, and he'll probably get on top, go for a choke, and close the show. So for me, I like the under in principle in this one. It's like plus 165 because I can see either one of these guys getting hurt. I see both these guys as like risk takers at times on the feet, like willing to step in to land theirs and like in doing so, taking a risk. And, I could see it being a fight of the night type war as well. But if you're going to give me both guys like taking huge shots at each other's head, trying to go for kills for 15 minutes, and I think one guy has like a pretty clear submission opportunity, it just feels to me like this is a fight that could end inside the distance like 50% of the time. And they're pricing it like it's not that likely. So for me, I'll probably be looking at the unders because Bahamundes, at minus 110, I will admit I was at least considering it. I'm not laying chalk to find out on this fight, right? Like it's a step up in competition. But for me, you give me these two fighters. You don't tell me who they fought. You just show me their body types, the set of skills that they have. I'm like, Fiziev should win if it's a pure striking contest. But if it's a dirty clinch fight, if it's a fight on the ground, and if it's a fight at distance, I think Bahamundes can win all those fights. And I think I'd favor him in a ground fight purely so. Good shit, man. This should be a really fun fight. And speaking of, the fans are definitely going to have a good time on this one. Fizzy was 45. Fizzy said 45 was going to happen, but Chris Duncan was on lucrative and heard he struggles to make 55. I don't really know what to make of that. I mean, I would be surprised if a guy who's 32, finally drops down at this point in his career, but stranger things have happened. He is small, like just look at the size difference between these two fucking guys. Like the modern UFC lightweight is a lot bigger than a guy like Fiziev, but we also saw Fiziev in that fight with Justin Gaethje landing his own shots, looking very good early, landing good body work, good leg kicks. Like he's got tools that will punish Bahamundes here as well. So should be fun. Last but not least, my brother, we've got the main event of the evening. We'll start with Brother Wizz. We've got Jamahal Sweet Dreams Hill, the former champion. This fight is now a true pick'em, minus 110s either way. You can, shop around a little bit, but I think you're laying chalk either direction this week on the main event. Khalil Rountree, the warhorse, coming back in this one. How do you see it going down, my man?
Yeah, I think we just have two different levels of fighter here. As much as I am someone who runs away from the window when it comes to Jamahal Hill and Jamahal Hill fights, I've just not been like the biggest fan of his body of work and just his overall skill set as he's progressed through the UFC and given us more and more film time to study. I just think that this time out, he's just a level higher than Khalil Rountree. I do understand that Khalil has an extensive background in the Muay Thai, and I think his kicks could pose a big threat here to Jamahal, and I think he does have the power to hurt Jamahal at some point. But I think his best weapon in this fight is going to be that low kick, whereas Jamahal, I think, will be the faster striker and throws a lot more down the middle than Khalil is going to be able to land, because Khalil likes to land these hooks, and they're short-range weapons. When you want to get up close against a guy like Jamahal Hill, he's going to land those straights a lot more often than the more, what's the word I'm looking for? Looping shots. There we go. Thank you, Liam. So yeah, landing the looping shots against Jamahal is going to be a lot tougher because he goes straight down the pipe. And when you look at Khalil's record, sure, he got the lifetime of hell beating the shit out of him last time against Poatan. But then you look through and what's his best win? He beat Anthony Smith by knockout, Dawkins by knockout, Jacoby split. That may be his best win. And then right before it was Carl Roberson. For me, I think the Jacoby win is probably his best win out of the bunch. And I don't think Jacoby and Jamahal Hill are on the same levels either. And in that Jacoby fight, he was getting pieced up a little bit on the feet. Now, with Jamal, is it his chin to be trusted? That's the question. We've seen him hurt time and time again here, even against Yuri. He did get hurt, got finished there in that fight, even though he ate a bunch of shots from Yuri. The chin, I was surprised it held up as long as it did. And then the time before it, obviously the left hook from Alex Pereira sent him away. Against Glover, showed a good outing, but Glover doesn't really have too much to offer in terms of striking, and wasn't able to land takedowns there because he was just on the back foot. Against Thiago Santos, he actually got clipped, if I'm remembering this correctly, too, and had a big mouse over his eye for most of the fight. Thiago was landing bombs on him. And then against Johnny Walker, that fight ended pretty quickly, so nothing to say there. I think Jamal's going to be able to land his straight shots more often than Khalil's going to be able to land at all. But if Khalil's able to work the low kicks, then I think he'll be having a much better time dealing with Jamahal Hill. But where this fight stands, I think Jamahal Hill is the rightful play here. Am I getting to the window? Probably not. The more I talk about it, the more I'm convincing myself that this fight is accurately lined.
You know, I tend to largely agree with you, my man. One thing that makes me, understand where the Jamahal Hill money is coming from is the ABCs, they always bet on cardio, and we've seen it a million times in MMA where it looks like somebody, could get the stoppage early. They don't quite get it. They start to tire out, and the guy with better cardio finds a way to win. It's happened a million times. And when you look at a guy like Jamahal Hill, we know that he could throw in excess of 200 significant strikes over the course of 25 minutes. That's like a remarkable achievement in any weight class, right? Not a lot of people do that. We celebrate guys like Max Holloway who throw like 400 plus because they are literally insane outliers. Like no one else does anything close to that, right? So when I look at a guy like Jamahal Hill, in his prime, at his peak, he was definitely throwing like the best light heavyweight volume we've ever seen. In his recent fights, he's not throwing volume. Like he landed a decent amount against Yuri as well, but I don't know that he's setting his feet, with as much conviction. He's got the 2 braces on his knees. He's susceptible to low kicks. The guy just feels like he's kind of unsteady on his 2 feet in his last 2 fights. And, when you watch that Pereira knockout, he gets like his foot stepped on and then gets clipped, right? But then you watch the Yuri fight, and Yuri had a lot of success confusing him with stance switches, hitting him with clean left hands, like straight through the guard, wasn't able to intercept them, wasn't able to see him come in. Hands were starting to be carried pretty low in the second round, taking a lot of chances, walking forward with his chin exposed, doing a lot of reaching for a guy like Yuri and looking for those uppercuts. He landed a handful of them, right? So it's not like it was a useless tactic, but taking a lot of chances, putting yourself out there with a big opening to the body as well as to the chin when you're reaching out for the clinch. And it's one thing to reach to a tight clinch, the classic Muay Thai plum, guys bring both elbows and they make it very difficult to move, to look around, to see, and to hit, right? And when you're reaching out with like long, grabbing here on the hold of somebody, your arm is manipulable and there's a lot of space, right? For different offense, different attacks coming back. So I think Hill's got to be a lot more disciplined with his hand placement in this fight, or he will be in trouble. When you look at Khalil, Khalil is fast. He's assertive on offense, and he hits very hard. He throws a lot of kicks from close range. And again, if you're going to be reaching out with your hands, like what are you going to block that with? Your elbow? It's straight out in the air, right? It's up here. You're going to block something coming down here? Not going to happen. So I think that in rounds 1, 2, and 3, it's anybody's ball game because it's light heavyweight. But like, if you ask me who's the favorite in rounds 1, 2, and 3, it's Khalil. I think he is the faster guy to the target. I think he has a more basic game, but it's more defensively responsible. He keeps a high guard up, right? Like keeps a pretty basic marching position. Like he's walking towards you. He's kind of bouncing that lead leg a little bit, keeping it mobile. So if you want to kick his leg, he's probably going to check it. And then he's also keeping that high guard, elbows, shoulders up. That's why he gets tired in 12 and a half minutes, right? He's kind of fighting. I compare him in some ways to Jose Aldo, and not because he's a small Brazilian man but specifically Aldo fights from a position of tension, right? You look at Jose Aldo, he looks like he's constantly ready to snap something at you and explode, right? That's why when you're Max Holloway and you feinted him like 500 times, he's exhausted in 12 minutes because every time he gets that feint, he's reacting with 100%. Like, here's my committed combination on return. Pop, pop, pop. and he throws 3 of them, whether you're there or not. I think that for Khalil, if he wins this fight, it's probably because Jamahal comes in, is willing to exchange with him, and he starts getting touched up. Because Khalil will throw, in my opinion, cleaner, more technical 2-3-piece combos at Jamahal Hill than Jamahal will be throwing back, right? I think Jamahal will be throwing loopier shots, taking bigger risks, to your point. But then if the fight goes long, like the one thing about Jamahal Hill, he's willing to bite down and keep going, right? Yuri dropped him on his ass bad, and dude just got back up and was like, all right, hit me again, like, let's go. And eventually he got put down so bad that he couldn't get back up, right? Fair play. But the guy is not a quitter, even Jamahal Hill against Paul Craig, he got his arm snapped in half, and the dude's trying to beat him up. Like, he's using his other arm to try and center his hand and punch him back in the face with his broken hand. Yeah, the guy is tough, right? He's certified tough. I just think that athleticism is a massive gap here. I look at these 2 guys face off. I look at these 2 guys on the scale. One of them looks like an elite athlete. That would be Khalil. And one of them looks like a guy, right? Like a guy you'd run into at the gym. Again, no disparagement. Both these guys will whoop my ass, but now it's about these 2 guys fighting each other. And you can look at resumes, which I think is important. It's one thing to consider. I think Jamahal has a better resume. But are you the same guy that put your resume together? It's a really important question to ask in MMA. And I have not seen the same Jamahal Hill since he got his surgically repaired knee put under duress very rapidly by taking that fight with Pereira. So the guy's had 3 fights since 2023, if my memory serves. And it's been getting progressively worse, right? You mentioned the fight with Thiago Santos. It's not like this guy was 100% lights out, nobody can touch me before that. No, he was still getting touched, but he had the durability, and he had the mobility. He had the volume. He was able to keep it going. And I don't know if we have that anymore. So I'm not writing him off, right? Last week, Usman surprised me. My hat is fucking off to the guy, right? To have, the known problems in his knees and everything else for so many years and come out and have that performance, championship shit. Jamahal Hill is a former champion. Could he go out there and put on a championship, y'all must have forgot type performance? I think that's absolutely possible. But when I talk about who should be favored in a fist fight, normally we're talking about who's going to start hot, who's going to win these first, second, third round. Because the live market's its own thing, right? Live, you might be looking to invest in Jamahal Hill. If you see Khalil doing them huffing, them puffing between rounds, which is not out of the question here, right? But who do I think is going to win the first round? I think Khalil's going to win the first round. Who do I think is going to win the first 2 rounds? I think Khalil probably wins those. I think there's a chance he hurts him badly because he throws with bad intentions. He's going to try and chop his legs out from under him, which could end badly. He's going to try and put some shots on his body. Not the hardest body you've ever seen. Could end badly for him. And then up top, we know that Khalil throws with fight-ending intentions. If he's not able to put him away, Mike Tyson used to say you can fight for the knockout or you can fight for the decision, right? Khalil has made no bones about it. He's telling you before the fight, I'm going to go fight for the knockout every time. Win, lose, draw, indifferent. Even if Alex knocks me out, I'm going to go fight him for the knockout. And he landed good shots, and he came forward. He looked sharp. His left hand was getting to the target. He was getting respect from Alex. But the problem was Alex started to walk him down. He started to apply more pressure, and Khalil couldn't keep up. So I think Jamahal has a path to replicate some of that success. But I think the one difference is Alex is a lot more defensively responsible with his hands. He's not as easy to hit as a guy like Jamahal Hill, who takes more risks and kind of doesn't have as disciplined hand placement. So Pereira, I just think, is a little bit more sound at the game that they both play, which we saw how that met up when they both fought each other. The better tactics won there. And I think we've seen now a number of times, if you throw with the left hand creatively, you could definitely find openings on Jamahal Hill. And Khalil's got a big left hand, and he throws it a few different ways, and I think he's probably going to find the target here. So my pick is going to be Khalil, KO 1-2-3, but I'm going to have in parentheses in that article, Hill 4-5 decision, because I think if it gets to the scorecards, he's going to have double dip on strikes. That's who Jamahal Hill is at the end of the day. He threw 82 against Yuri while he was getting shellacked. So I think that the guy goes out there with intentions to throw. People were saying, I don't know if this guy, still has it in him to throw. I think he's still going to throw, but that's a game of take it or leave it, right? He's going to throw with Khalil, and Khalil's going to throw back. So for me, I think somebody's probably going to hit the deck here. I thought about the under 2.5 rounds because I could see either one of them clocking each other in the first round, second round, third round. So for me, I just kind of got priced out. I don't want to lay the chalk on a 2.5 with 5 rounds to work with. We see a lot of times in 5-rounders, guys come out a little bit more conservative with their output. So I don't know that we'll see that here, right? Like I said, Khalil tends to be foot on the gas. Let's find out where this train's headed right away. But we'll have to see how both guys approach it on fight night. Anything you want to close with, Wiz? Any final thoughts that you have for the people?
They're going to fight until someone wins. That's what I'm going to say. Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of could tell on at least my end, this card has a lot of very close fights where I could see it can go either way. So not the most passionate takes similar to the past couple of weeks, but it's going to be a really good card, I predict, from a viewership standpoint, because you have fights like the Jamahal Hill and Khalil Rountree fight. You have the Fiziev versus Bahamundes. You do have the Curtis Blades and Kunv, just answering the question marks that we've been waiting to see, because obviously the UFC has been rebooking this fight time and time again for a reason. We have a banger with Oralbai and Musayv. I mean, we can keep going down the list, but the point remains the same. I think we have a really good card on our hands just from a fan standpoint, and that's what I'm excited for the most.
I absolutely love it, brother. Baku, you're getting your first UFC event. I hope that y'all enjoy it too. Wanted to say shout out to the sharpest chat in the game. We've got 107 people watching, according to our guy Zach. Only 32 likes. So guys, make sure that you drop a like on the stream if you've enjoyed the show. If you have questions, comments, concerns, fire off in the chat. In the comment section down below, because the chat's about to end. But God bless you all. Thank you all for being here. Sharpest chat in the game each and every week. And until next time, come back and we're having all the same fun again. Thanks, everybody. God bless. Good luck. And we'll see y'all next time.